Ladies and gentlemen, we are scheduled to start at 6:45, but we're still missing a couple members of council, so I'll give it a couple more minutes. We're still missing Councillor Parks. I've just messaged Councillor Parks to see if she's able to join. There we are. I think we have everyone now. So with that, I will call the meeting to order at 6:48. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Committee of the Whole Administration meeting for this Monday, November the 2nd. Okay. As per our practice, I will call for an attendance call for each member of council that's present before we get into the meeting. Starting on my screen, to my left, Councillor Gordon.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Buderick.
Present.
Councillor Townend.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hagedorn.
Present.
Councillor Parks.
Present.
And Councillor Porter.
Present with technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're seeing a couple of those too on. It's okay. And we all seem to be here, so we are called to order. And we have an agenda before us, item 2.1. Okay. Are there any known errors or omissions or additions to the agenda from staff? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Townend, seconded by Councillor Parks. And any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move forward to our staff reports. First item is item 4.1, proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw. And I turn to the clerk.
And I'm just going to thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to share my screen. I have put together a PowerPoint just to try and walk us through it somewhat quickly. Can everyone see that? Oops.
We can.
Okay, so the procedure bylaw amendments, this was before council at the last meeting, and it was just asked to be brought back here just for clarification of a couple sections. So section 4.1, so what was done through the bylaw, so you would have seen attached to your report a couple of the full procedure bylaws trying to highlight the differences. I apologize for the public meeting that we didn't have that red line revision available for council and the public. So we have tried to clarify that now and made it a bit clearer of what these amendments were. So 4.1 was just speaking in regards to the audio and video recording of the council meetings. I'll just go through it. If there's any questions, I can't see if anybody's has their hand up, so please just speak out if you need me to go back. Section 4.2 again is just the recordings under agreement. So this was because we are now streaming our meetings. We just changed the wording in this section. Section 4.3, this is as well just on the council recordings. I just noticed that we've just got audio there, so we will change that to audio and video just because we are doing both for most of the meetings that we can. This was the clarification around the 4 and 3. So we have changed it to 3, that it will end basically at 10 or anything after 10 would require a resolution from council or agreement from council to go past 10 p.m. So the yellow part is where it's showing with the stroked out wording is that will be removed from the bylaw. The section 8, I didn't put up the part that was going to be deleted, but it spoke to meetings, a meeting that we really haven't used. So, and again, because this is a amendment and it wasn't a full procedure bylaw review, we just we're suggesting that we would remove that section 8 and replace it with committee of the whole, just because council has been using committee of the whole on a monthly basis. So the committee of the whole would speak to, again, each of these sections. We're just outlining what was going to happen in the committee of the whole, the agenda, and I believe that captured everything that council had wanted for the agenda to contain for committee of the whole. The chair, this is one section that we will need discussion on and clarification so that the bylaw can be finalized to be brought back to a public meeting. And that was the discussion on chairing for committee of the whole. So there was the idea of whether it would be appointed by the meeting before the council, before the next committee of the whole meeting, on a rotational basis, or it could be that the deputy mayor would chair all COW meetings. So I'll just finish through and then we'll just make sure we come back to that section if that's okay with you, Your Worship.
Yep.
Section 9A 0. So there was a discussion on this just because of where it's put in the bylaw. And so what happened was when we had to put in the emergency meetings, we had added a section under the 9A. And then when we went to electronic meetings during a declared emergency, we added that under a separate amending bylaw and just added a new section 9A. Just because if we were going to change all the numbers, it would have made it the procedure bylaw very cumbersome to try and follow it. So we just put in 9A. What will happen is when we do go through and do a full review, these numbers will be changed to reflect the actual numbers. So the 9A is electronic meetings during a declared emergency, which is what the Act was allowing. And then the 9A.8 was a continuation of the electronic participation. So the section 9A is already in there, and then the 9A.8 was just the section that was going to be in this amendment to allow it to go past the emergency. Section 11 was just adding national anthem and council direction list. So that was just, again, changing the letters on that. And then 25.2, we were adding in the electronic voting system. We had talked about what's available on iCompass is that we can vote based on, or not we, council can vote based on us putting it out for an electronic vote. So we'd have to look at setting that up, but we thought we would include it in the bylaw to allow it once council wants to go that way. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen. And other than that, I know there was another section and that was just in regards to, I'm just going on here, the direct motion. So it was speaking to any resolution or any item that council felt was of time sensitive nature. They could bring that in, and again, it's introduced by resolution on the consent of 2/3 majority of council. Motion to reconsider is under section 2410. The sections regarding the chair or the rulings from the chair, it is under the responsibilities of the chair, and it states in there what the responsibilities are, which is including deciding on all questions of order, subject to an appeal by council, and then ruling on all procedural matters without debate or comment. So that's where that section came in. And yes, and then the other one was just the chairing. And I believe that was all the amendments. And I believe we touched on all the points that were brought up at the council meeting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chapman. Council, do we have any questions or comments with regards to this? And this is committee of the whole. I'm open to a slightly easier set of rules.
Sorry, 1 second. I think Councillor Porter we lost Councillor Porter.
We've lost Councillor Porter a couple times through this. She may be having some technical difficulties, but she's back. And Council, are there questions or comments with regard to the proposed amendments to the procedural bylaw? And I'll go to Councillor Porter.
So Debbie, through the first one under 5.6 for going past 10 p.m., because we're leaving it out that council can decide to go past 10 o'clock if they so choose, does that mean all we have to do if we want to go past 10, we just have to suspend the rules of procedure? Is that why there's no wording in there to that effect?
Yes,
okay.
That's through your worship. It was just basically the wording that was in there was saying it. Even if you pass, you shouldn't be able to pass to extend it past 10. So we removed that wording. So if you wanted to go past 10, then it would be by resolution. Council would have to agree.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure of that. Shall I keep going, or do you want me to? Yeah. Okay. On the electronic meetings, I presume you've put a sort of a deadline in there of 1 year after the state of emergency is stopped. I suppose after that 1 year, then that could be revisited. I just didn't want to tie our hands to say it could only be 1 year. Like if council decided that it was, a great thing to keep electronic meetings going as a standard routine, let's say. That we could do that as opposed to having to end it in 1 year. So I presume that by wording it that way, it just leaves it open to be revisited. Is that was the idea behind that?
Through your worship, yes. We will have to do. We'll be bringing back the procedure bylaw for a fulsome review, and then that could be done at that time as well.
Okay. Yeah, and the other concern was I have that there was nothing that really defined what was of an urgent nature. Like if somebody wanted to bring a motion as opposed to a direct motion, then the only person that's ruling on that is the chair, and that no offense to the chair by any means, please don't take any offense, but it could be urgent to that board or that representative's constituents, and there could be a disagreement that is not urgent. So I just thought there should be some sort of guideline or some sort of wording to more define what's considered urgent. And I think maybe you did that a little bit, but could that be improved on any? I'd like to hear what others have to say, like what their thoughts are on that.
Does the clerk have further comment before I go to the rest of the members of council?
No, I was just going to say on that one, it's time sensitive. The intent was that it's time sensitive. That's usually the mayor at this point, or the chair, who's making that determination. If they, and it's subject to an appeal. So if it was ruled down, if the chair ruled that it wasn't time sensitive, then council can appeal the decision and give reasons why they felt that it should be going on. But ultimately, yes, the chair would have final say on it.
So in the past, and I'm just bringing this up because in the past, and I mean, we haven't had a situation yet, and I doubt very much we will have a situation, but in previous councils, there were situations where the chair made a ruling and the rest of council wasn't necessarily in agreement with that ruling. So there was opportunity not only to appeal it, but at that time, the procedure, and I'm not sure if the procedure was written or if it was just a known procedure, that council could vote on whether to overrule the chair or not. And that was an important that was an important ability, because it's not just, we're not in a dictatorship here. All of council makes decisions on all matters. You know, the mayor, the chair is just that, the mayor and the chair. It's the decisions are left up to all of council. So we can't have, in a democracy, one person having a final say on something. It has to be a vote by all representatives of our municipality. So that's an area of concern I do have. And as I said before, I doubt it hasn't happened yet. I doubt very much it's going to happen. But I think it needs to be there and needs to be clear and clarified should something ever come up, and maybe next term on council. But I'm just going by experience that I've had in previous terms, that we had, as a council as a whole, we had the ability to appeal and overrule the chair. And Rick, maybe you can speak to that, because you were the one that taught me how to do that.
When I wasn't in the chair, yes, most definitely. But I'm actually grateful for the conversation. I encourage the idea of a challenge to the chair. I believe that's what the clerk is referring to as an appeal. That if I make a ruling on procedure, any procedural matter really, but in this case, or the example we're using right now, the decision to have something, either a direct motion or a notice of motion, if I make a ruling in one direction, if the members of council, if any member of council wishes to challenge that, that's all they need to do is to make a motion to challenge the chair on that ruling. They get a seconder, and then we call the vote. The chair is overruled, and the alternate decision is made. I believe that is well within the procedural document right now, and would apply to the decision between direct or notice of motion as well.
Okay, no, thank you. It's just I was basing my comments on Debbie's last statement, was that the mayor had final say, and I kind of didn't agree with that. And I'm not reading it as clear as maybe some others are reading it in the procedural bylaw, what you've just said. So I'm just wondering if that could be just cleaned up a little bit, so it's just clearer. It's not. I've read it twice, more than twice, and I don't read what you're saying in that in the 14.3 or wherever it is.
I was just going to ask for that. I don't know the numbers for the for the procedural bylaw. I'm searching through it myself. While I'm searching, other members of council, would you like to chime in on this? I'll ask the question directly. Are you comfortable with the idea of being able to do a challenge to the ruling of the chair?
Mm-hmm.
I see nods. I see nods. I'll go to the deputy.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to it just because I can't, of course, I'm trying to find it now and I can't, but I remember reading, basically you summarized it, Rick, with the process for going through, and I took it that would fall under this as well, that if someone disagreed with the ruling, we could challenge it and it would go to a vote and go that way. So I thought it was covered, but again, I'm trying to find it now. I thought I highlighted it, but I can't find it right now. But yes, I thought that's the way it would work. And if everyone else agrees, then I'm in agreement with it.
I'll go to the clerk.
Yeah, through you, your worship. The definition of direct motion means a motion to consider items which, due to time constraints, require the immediate attention of council and may be introduced with the consent of 2/3 majority of council. So if 2/3 of the members of council agree that it's time sensitive, then it would go on there without basically a ruling. If there's not 2/3, then it wouldn't be considered a timing issue.
And just for clarity then, would it be my option as chair or any chair's option to ask that question of council prior to making a ruling?
Yes.
I think we've lost Councillor Porter again.
Oh.
Hopefully she'll get back in very quickly. Other members of council, comments? Deputy, go ahead.
Just on that topic, if that's the process we're going to follow, where it's actually put to a vote, that kind of eliminates the challenge then, because the vote would already be taken.
And the clerk is nodding.
Yes, for the notice of motion or for the direct motion. The challenge is basically if the chair is ruled on say the order of business or something like that, members of council can challenge the chair on that, and that's where it would be that ultimately his decision is final. The chair's decision is final. But yes, in regards to the notice of direct motion, then that's can be by 2/3.
Okay. Thank you.
And just again, just for clarity, any challenge to the chair requires a 2/3 vote, does it not?
No, I think any member of council can challenge the chair in regards to a ruling on anything, and I mean that would then go for a discussion, or you would make a ruling and then they can challenge that ruling.
And if they challenge it and we call a vote over the challenge, that's a 2/3 or that's a simple majority?
Yes, I believe that's ruling on all procedural matters without debate or comment. So no, that's yours. Procedural, sorry. I'd have to look at that one. I believe it is 2/3, but I'll clarify that.
I think so too, but I think that Councillor Porter has a point in that the language around a challenge to the chair likely should be codified within the procedural bylaw.
Okay.
Any other members of council on this issue before we move on to the others? No? Okay. There were a number of items in this procedural bylaw amendment. Is there any other item the council wishes to address? Seeing no hands. Nope. The clerk.
Sorry, we have the chairing of the committee.
I was just going to come back to that. I believe it's item 8.4 asks for language around the chairing of the committee of the whole. We have, I believe, two options. One to assign that to the deputy. The other to forget the exact language, but to rotate it amongst the members of council. Okay. I'm looking for comments and desires. And before we get to a motion? Anybody have an opinion on who should chair the committee of the whole? And I'll go to Councillor Parks first.
I think it would be good to have the deputy go ahead and start to chair the meetings, and then we could always revisit it again somewhere in the future.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Porter?
Yeah, I was going to say that it should be the deputy, if he so chooses to do that, or if there's anybody else who has any particular interest, they should speak up and should have opportunity as well. I have no interest myself.
Thank you. Other members? Councillor Buderick, go ahead.
I'm fine with either yourself or Deputy Mayor on chairing those. I also have no interest.
Okay. I haven't heard from the deputy on this yet. I'm wondering. Go ahead, Deputy.
I purposely have been sitting quiet because I'm when I went into this role, it wasn't to be in the limelight. It was to further the work. I'm willing to do it, but I'm quite interested in hearing the other options as well. So far, it seems like there is an interest in myself or you chairing them, and I'm fine with that. I'll do whatever the decision is.
Thank you. Councillor Townend or Councillor Gordon, would you like to express an opinion? No? No? And I'm going to look for a motion to settle this. Okay. And I do want to make comment. I mean, it has been my honor to chair these meetings. I believe it was myself that was kind of driving, getting someone else to chair these. But if it is the will of council for me to chair it, then so be it. I take the same position that the deputy did. It is up to council as to who they wish to chair. I am looking for a motion. Councillor Porter.
It's really a question. Are you looking for a motion on all of the procedural bylaw or just that specific item?
At this point, I'm looking for that specific item.
Okay, I'm not moving anything.
Question for the clerk. If there is no motion and no request for amendment from council on this, does it revert back to the status that it's been?
Yes.
Which would leave me in the chair. That would leave the mayor in the chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Council, I'll give you another shot. Do you wish to make a motion? Councillor Porter.
I'll move that the mayor remain in the chair unless he requests the deputy mayor to do so, and can do so on a regular basis if he so chooses.
I'll accept that motion. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon. Move or comment?
No, I think it's obviously council is saying it's either you or Jim. I don't think anybody really has a preference who does it. So I think if Jim wants some experience doing it, then he should just discuss that with you, and either one of you should take on that, to take it on and continue to do so.
Thank you. Seconder comment? No? Okay. Anyone else? I will add my comment. Right. I'm, again, happy and comfortable chairing these meetings. If that is the will of council. One of the ideas behind me suggesting to the clerk that we have this discussion was that if I am the designated chair, unless I ask the deputy to move on from that, or to take on the role, then the the consistency and the deference that you guys all pay to me in this seat will remain. I appreciate that, and it is hopefully a sign of respect that you want me to take on to keep on the chair. But because this is committee of the whole, it is supposed to be more open, more conversational, and I don't want deference to my position to interfere with that open conversation. Thus, I was thinking that someone else in the chair would make that more comfortable. Again, I will certainly accept the will of council. Okay. Are there any other comments? Mover final? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now, is there anything else with the overall procedural bylaw? Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, my apologies. I've been going in and out. My internet, for whatever reason, is failing me tonight. But I have switched to hotspotting, so hopefully that doesn't happen again. So you may have already talked about this, but if you have, I missed it. I didn't realize that I was the only one that wasn't frozen on my screen. So, but I did want to talk to or speak about the motion to rescind. No, motion to reconsider. I'm sorry, motion to reconsider. The way I'm reading it is that it sounds like a motion, you can only reconsider the motion in the same day or the same night that that motion has been made. Is that new? We just have not been following procedure?
To the clerk.
I believe that I think motion to reconsider is kind of one of those motions that nobody realizes that it is basically at the meeting when the motion is happening that you reconsider. Other than that, it becomes a new motion on what it is. And I think, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think there is something in there that speaks to not bringing it back more than once during a term, or that, again, it would have to have a 2/3 vote if you were looking at bringing another item back without new information. That's part of the motion.
Okay, so I think we need to really clean that up and clarify that a little bit more. The motion to reconsider, my understanding, and I could totally be wrong on this, but my understanding was that the same decision cannot be, the same question cannot be asked twice within a year. So if council has made a decision on a matter, regardless of whether there's new information or not, a motion to reconsider had to be moved successfully in order to ask that same question again within a 1-year time period. Now, you can tell me that I'm totally out of lunch and I totally misunderstood what the procedural bylaw was.
That was Councillor Porter.
Okay, so having said all that, then the way it's written here, it's making it sound like you can't reconsider something within a year. And if you want to reconsider or do a motion to reconsider, it has to be done the same night as the motion. Well, as we all know, more information or new information can come forward later on. It can be months later, but still within that year. And I agree with the rule that something shouldn't be redecided within the year, or else we could be bringing it back every time someone disagrees with the original decision. So, but my thought is that if new information or someone's had a change of heart, even if not new information has come forward and they want to ask council if it could be reconsidered because they'd like more discussion on it, but it is within the time of the year, we should be able to do so if council agrees to do so. And so that's where I think the wording is a little bit ambiguous in the procedural bylaw, and it's also saying that it has to be done the same night, which I never had that understanding. And if it has been written that way, we've been breaking again another procedural. But anyway, Rick, maybe you can speak to it. You got way more experience with that than I do.
As I said, Councillor Porter, I agree that that is the way we've been doing it, that a motion, well, forgetting the idea of what's happening on the same evening or the same meeting, right? Within a year, if the same question is being asked, that requires a motion for reconsideration to bring that back to the table, and then the debate can happen again on that particular issue. If there is a new report, new information coming forward, it doesn't necessarily need a motion for reconsideration because, as you say, it's a new situation at that time. But if someone has changed their mind, etc., that would be appropriate for a motion for reconsideration. That has been, I will say, that has been the practice. Whether it has been appropriate within the procedural bylaw or not, as our clerk keeps on telling me, the procedural bylaw is a living document. We can change it. We make it fit the way we wish to practice, as long as it's within the rules of the Municipal Act, of course. Yes, I think what you're saying makes sense, that the language that I'm reading right now would cause difficulty with a reconsideration, certainly.
Yeah.
Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on what you just said, is that in my understanding, it was always a motion to reconsider was required, regardless of whether there was new information or not. And the reason for that, or the reason I think it should be that way as well, is that we have seen in the past, and I'll go back to previous council terms, not this term, certainly not, but previous council terms where a staff member has not been satisfied with the council decision and have brought it back and have integrated into the report something that they feel could be taken as new information. And I think that's a really gray area and a really, I don't know, that's really subjective. What is new and what is not new, unless it's something extraordinarily new. And we did have that once already, where I did challenge asking about a motion to reconsider, because I didn't think that I was on the side that I liked the original decision. I didn't want it changed, right? So I did challenge that and ask that why we weren't doing a motion to reconsider. And the answer I got was that there was new information, which I didn't argue, but I really highly thought, well, putting a couple extra words in it to me did not really mean it was new information. So that was a gray area, and I think the less gray areas that we have on procedure, the better. And I know that we can suspend procedure at any time, but at least at least have the best language we can have, and the least ambiguity we can in the procedure would be really helpful.
Agreed. Council, anyone else on council wish to comment on this? Deputy, go ahead.
I could be wrong. I was under the understanding that motion to reconsider, that was something that was covered somewhat in the Municipal Act as well. And I don't know if the clerk knows off the top of her head, but that would just be something that before we change it, if we're going to change it too much, then we really should just make sure that we are following that before we start doing anything to the bylaw. Not so much what Councillor Porter was talking about most recently, but was reconsidering within the year and things like that. I thought that portion of it, there was wording in the Municipal Act on that, but I could be wrong. I just something to think about.
To the clerk.
Yeah, so I've taken notes on that. We'll look at that and see what clarity we can provide going forward, and I can bring that back to council.
Perfect.
Thank you. And anyone else? I think that one is going to come back to us at a later date. Is there anything else within these changes council wishes to address. No one? Okay. Are we satisfied with the changes that we've actually discussed, that we can move forward with these amendments? And I would need a motion to that effect. Deputy, go ahead.
So moved.
Thank you. And just for clarity, that includes all of the items, including the decision made with regard to the chair of the committee of the whole. Okay. And the clerk will continue to work with the language around a motion to consideration. I have a seconder for that. Oh, the clerk.
Sorry, so just in regards to that, what I would suggest is the report suggests that it coming to November 9th, but because that is Monday, what I might suggest is that it goes to the second meeting in November.
Mover okay with that?
Yes, whatever allows the work to be completed.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Porter? Mover comment? Seconder comment?
I just want to clarify the motion. The motion is just for the clerk to make the amended changes and bring it back. The changes that we are all satisfied with, and then bring it back to council or back to committee of the whole.
Deputy?
The second meeting in November would be council.
Council.
And
Okay.
do we, just for absolute clarity, right? At that point, we will be seeing new language around, or potentially seeing new language around the motion for reconsideration, as with the direction we've given the clerk. Are we prepared to address that or consider that in a council meeting without further discussion at a committee of the whole?
Yes,
So that is the motion.
that's the motion I made. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Did I have a seconder? Councillor Porter.
Yeah, I did second it, but I was going to speak to it further
Okay.
when my turn came.
And Mover, any further comment?
I'll wait.
Okay. Seconder, go ahead.
So when you bring it back to council, you're going to bring it back to council in the form of a bylaw and a public meeting as well.
Public comment, yes. So it'll be open. The bylaw will be there, similar to what's attached to the report here. Sorry, through your worship, that it'll be the red line revision. Those changes will be identified, and then it would be for public comment. Depending on what public comment is received, council and including council's comments, then it could be considered to be adopted following that meeting.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify. You're not going to bring it back as a report and a bylaw. We have seen that done a few times, right? So that will be another opportunity at council to comment, and then it will be brought back again. Okay.
If there's additional comments, yes.
Okay.
So just for clarity, on the, I guess it's the 23rd, we would have the public meeting, council's comments, the public's comments, and council would have the option to approve the bylaw at the time or to move the bylaw to the following meeting pending based on those comments. Okay, just making sure. And secondary, did you have further comment? No? Anyone else? I'll go back to the mover. Nothing further? Okay, thank you very much. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move forward to item 4.2, Fairfield-Gutzeit House Community Public Engagement Report. We have Ms. McFarland with us. There she is. And Ms. Fennell. Okay.
Hello.
All right. Ms. McFarland, do you wish to address this?
Ms. Fennell is going to be doing a presentation, Your Worship.
Thank you. And Ms. Fennell, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Is that visible?
Yes.
Perfect. So good evening. As your community development coordinator, I was asked to lead in the organization of a public engagement session. As such, on July 9th of this year, 18 community members, along with Loyalist Township staff, gathered virtually to discuss the future plans of the Fairfield-Gutzeit House. As you're aware, in December of 2019, the township took over responsibility for managing the property and all related assets. The focus of the public engagement session was to discuss the preservation of the house itself and how best to utilize it, the collections, the Discovery Center, and the grounds. We started off the session with a few poll questions to get a feel for where folks were at in terms of their priorities. The first was relatively even, as you can see, regarding what people feel is the best asset of the estate. Regarding the importance of educational programming, only one individual deems it to be a low priority. Similarly, the vast majority feel that it should remain a cultural center. Most are interested in attending public activities in the future, and some are up for volunteering depending on what the opportunities are. For anyone who is yet to visit the inside of the house, this photo gives you a bit of a visual as to what the collection the public has access to. We were able to categorize the feedback under three main headings: governing structure, economic development, programming, and special events. We also had notes related to potential challenges and general additional feedback. Another interior photo. So regarding governing structure, it was the consideration that Fairfield-Gutzeit House could be run through LNA County using the same model as the McPherson House in Napanee. The county would be responsible for programming, historical lectures, tours, with support, of course, from Loyalist for any special events. The public noted that the county already has staff with specific expertise related to historical sites and preservation. As the Fairfield-Gutzeit House could be the centerpiece of the Loyalist Parkway Association, more unity would be required from the different historical committees, including the Nelson Store, Bath Museum, Fairfield Homestead, to make the parkway a draw. Additionally, the Bath Library could also be a partner. There was talk of the need for more involvement from the community as a whole, including different businesses. The structure of the Fairfield-Gutzeit House and Bath Museum could be similar, especially since they are so close to one another. In doing so, the sites could have a similar opening time and opening season. Discussion also surrounded the development of a committee structure that would engage the historical and heritage organizations across the township. These possibilities include the creation of a subcommittee of the Recreation Committee for all decision-making and township supports. Volunteers of this committee would be responsible for recruiting other like-minded volunteers for certain areas, including fundraising, cleaning, maintaining artifacts, etc., as well as considering a business improvement association style group for collecting like-minded individuals. The public in attendance would also like to maintain charitable status for receiving grant money. Regarding economic development, it was agreed that Heritage and Bath can have great economic benefits. Bath could become an attraction similar to Wellington and Alexandra Bay. It was suggested to convert the building into a waterfront restaurant, although note potential conflict with existing surrounding businesses. Zoning would also have to be considered. The Bath water intake is also located at this site. There are opportunities for it to be used by different businesses and organizations to promote tourism and economic development in the region further. A small watercraft rental area on the docks was one idea, having a market on the patio and offering ice cream. It should be noted that powerboat rentals are not recommended due to the water intake, and upgrades to the docks would be required to use it as a marina. The public believe it is important to utilize the building throughout the year, having it open year-round as a hub for daily activities, including cards. This is also an opportunity to create an intentional decolonized history museum of Upper Canada with the inclusion of non-white and Indigenous stakeholders in the area leading the dialogue. Summer tours are an economic driver and should continue with the possibility of establishing a fee. Additionally, it was suggested to consider offering membership fees, have a sailing school offer lessons, continue to be a stop for the LNA bike tour, focus on attracting seniors tours, and explore possibilities for supporting wedding rentals. The concept of experiential travel was also part of the discussion, having tours between different businesses and sites. For those of you who are not aware, experiential travel is also known as immersion travel. It's a form of tourism in which people focus on experiencing a country, city, or particular place by actively and meaningfully engaging with its history, people, culture, food, and environment. There was an inquiry as to whether it would be possible to use the docks and open them to the public. It was suggested it would be nice for boaters passing by to be able to dock, look around, and get refreshments before continuing. However, it was then also noted by another attendee that Loyalist Cove is nearby, so it would not be necessary to use the docks at the house. The building and property are covered by the Heritage Conservation Act. Since it is a historical site and under the protection of Heritage Conservancy, it falls under the province as to whether you can make changes to the building. Along with this is that any digs will require an archaeologist's assessment. Oh, did I miss one? Sorry, I missed, oh, there it is. So regarding programming and special event ideas, I will list these off for you. Afternoon tea. Could have local businesses supply the food and drink for the event. It could be titled, Come Dine with the Fairfields. Historical movie night. Choose a film to watch and discuss some of the historical accuracies and inaccuracies. Ghost tours of haunted Bath. So there could be walking tours of Bath that could start at the Fairfield-Gutzeit house and go to various other sites. Historical themed dance and history nights. For an example, 1800s ball and or speakeasy style, where attendees would learn the 1920s dances and the history of the time period. Related to this, the Bath Museum has some runner stories from the area, as well as homemade still from the time. Christmas at the house, crafts and snacks for kids and adults, tour the house and in period decorations. A House of Haunts Halloween event, educational and student programming, including Museum 101, examine artifacts and how you work and visit a museum, as well as a study of the Loyalists. A variety of lecture series. Utilize the house for arts-based programming integrated with history and heritage. For example, the Gutzeit House Center for History and the Arts. Invite elementary students to dress in period costume and create their own plays. Invite Queen students to attend and view the art collection. Consider events being hosted as pop-up shops each weekend with a different theme or focus. And a potential historical passport stamped for visiting different sites to receive a small gift or prize for visiting. In terms of additional feedback, there's opportunity for better partnerships with Bath Public School and other local schools to attract youth at no cost, as well as include youth groups, church groups, and seniors. The concept was discussed of one website for all similar facilities to share costs and provide one-stop information center. Each location could prepare a small pamphlet detailing the museum's hours of operation, a link to their website, a brief description of the museum's history and collection, and promotion of the other sites. Also, the consideration for cross-training students so they can be moved to different facilities. Reference the Women's Institute as local historians, consider the inclusion of Amherst Island's history, and provide a visitor survey for feedback, as well as research William Fairfield's potential involvement in racist behavior. There was an inquiry regarding the assessment and restoration of the Fairfield-Gutzeit House, library, and museum buildings, and Lori McFarlane was able to advise that schedules have changed due to the pandemic, but the assessment will be done. Regarding potential challenges, there's a need to assess the state of the artifacts for damage and future preservation, including climate control and sun damage prevention, energy audits of the buildings, as well as a strong focus on the need for the Loyalist history to be all-encompassing, including the Métis, First Nations, Black Loyalists, Indigenous Loyalists, Loyalist women, and Loyalist women of color. French translations of all materials to encourage Quebec and other French-speaking visitors, and accessibility for individuals with exceptionalities. And that is all for me.
Thank you very much, Hillary. Great presentation. I attended those sessions, and it's a good capture of the conversations that happened in those. Council, this has been brought forward to you for your ideas, for expressions of interest of support of some of those ideas, where we want to go and what direction we should be giving staff at this point to move forward with these properties. And so I look for your comments. Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Hillary, for the presentation. I'm glad to see us trying to come up with a plan for these buildings. And I'm just not sure the direction to go. Like, I'm thinking the one option that was there was to have a discussion with the county to see about what options there are to partner with them, considering that they do have staff that already do this type of thing. However, we wouldn't have to, I guess in those discussions, I'd like to see not necessarily copy what they're doing at other places, but how we can modify it to this location while utilizing their strengths and their staff. And I like the idea, some of the ideas that did come out of this discussion. And I guess the one thing when we were looking at it previously, or what I was considering was, a tool for economic development. But I guess I was more focused on tourism. It seemed to make sense. The obvious thing would be tourism. This year, tourism wasn't the hot topic. So that's where I know that's only, like, there's about three of the points that would tie into tourism. So but tourism has different aspects, local tourism, sort of like what Hillary mentioned, where somebody immerses themselves, or even just us from the area. I mean, it'd be a great area, a great afternoon. And for me, I'm just looking at, for me, myself, I mean, what a great place to take the grandkids. That's a form of tourism. It's just local tourism, but it's still, if I'm buying a ticket and I'm going in and they're being educated, that is a bonus as well. So I guess that's what my thoughts were, is I was wondering if maybe, I don't know, I guess I'll ask the question, has there been any discussion with the county so far, or is it basically just coming to this point and then looking for direction, whether that's the avenue we want to go down?
Just for your information, early this year, prior to the COVID shutdowns, we did entertain the county CAO and several staff and did a tour of Fairfield-Gutzeit. The idea at the time was that we would, at the county's plan was that they would be hosting a county council meeting actually on the island at one point through this year, and we would make a stop at Fairfield-Gutzeit on that tour, and then present the idea to county council to engage the staff of the county with the township and get the ball rolling from that. Unfortunately, with COVID, all of those grandiose ideas kind of died, at least in the short term. So I'm sure that we will be looking to do that again. But the idea of the engagement at least has been initiated. Senior staff are enthused at the idea. County council would need to approve the engagement. Deputy, Lori, go ahead.
Just through you, Your Worship, we have recently had, we couldn't get it into the presentation tonight, but just Thursday, we did have a meeting with a Métis representative, and there were some very good ideas that were brought forward in terms of gardens and healing gardens and different ideas around how we could have a complete history at this site. And unfortunately, we couldn't get them into the presentation. A little bit they're there, but we're going to be exploring that further as well. The other thing I wanted to point out is in the service delivery review that Steve and Jenna are going to do shortly, there is a large, one of the themes focuses around our heritage properties and things that we should be looking at going forward. And I think the recommendations that have come out of that are very valid, and they would be good next steps to look at for all of our properties. And that includes, you know, doing a study, looking at a business plan for them, looking at ways, potentially putting together like a steering committee of key stakeholders, and that would include the county, and look at the whole package of our heritage assets that we have and how we can best develop something to highlight those wonderful assets in our municipality as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you. And I agree, the next part of this meeting with that portion related to this, I think they're going to piggyback each other. My only other thing was, I have been in the building, in the house, but of course it was the winter time, and it wasn't all open. I would suggest that when we're able to, it would be really nice, I think, if there was an opportunity for our council to be able to go through the building and tour it, or through the property, I should say. The pictures are nice, and I can remember some of the stuff, but I can't remember all of it from when I was there before. So for me to be able to visualize and walk through it, I find that usually quite helpful as well.
Good idea. Anyone else have ideas? I'll go with Councillor Porter and then Councillor Parks.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I agree with the Deputy Mayor's sentiments on that, and I think that collaborating with other, I guess, attractions, for lack of a better word, you know, working together with the county and whatever else is in our surrounding area, attracts people from outside. Like, you have to have, in my mind, to have someone drive 2 or 3 hours to our area, they have to be able to fill a whole day, right? There has to be several things being offered. It can't just be the Fairfield-Gutzeit house. We have to be able to offer them several things that they can do, and that's where the collaboration comes in. But at the same time, with the local tourism or local residents, I bet you there's a lot of local residents that have never been there, and I'm not sure why, but maybe it's just marketing, maybe it's just not hearing about it. Whatever we can do at that end to ensure that our local tourism is also boosted would be quite helpful. And just the one comment in regards to the docks. I think the more places a boater has the ability to stop, the better. Maybe not necessarily to offer refreshments or whatever, because as you say, there is the marina not too far away. But as a tourism aspect, if someone can stop and buy a ticket and go through the house by boat as opposed to by car, I think that just bolsters the whole attraction of the area. I mean, it would be nice if a boater can come in and spend a day stopping in Amherst Island, stopping at this attraction, stopping at that attraction. I think that's a really viable and great thing. So I wouldn't totally discount that right off the bat, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Councillor Parks, you're up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, just touching on what the deputy was mentioning about the local tourism. I think there's a great opportunity to add to things that can happen within the community with the different organizations, the Women's Institute, whether it's you know, like the Red Hat Society, these different things that could hold functions in that particular setting that would really enjoy learning about the history of the community. I know I did the haunted walk around the village 2 years ago, I guess, and it was very enlightening to learn a lot about the history of the village that I didn't know. And if we could continue things like that, as well as, you know, when you look at what Upper Canada Village has done with the Pumpkin Inferno and, you know, Fort Henry, when they used to have the light the night or whatever that was called, different events like that that could be part of the community. And I think it would draw on the local tourism to help out and support other businesses in the village. So yeah, I think it's all good. Great suggestions.
Other comments? I did want to echo something that was said. I believe Laurie said it a little while ago. The idea through the Economic Development Coalition, we've talked a lot about the idea of the time factor. You might drive half an hour to attend something for an hour, but if you're driving an hour, if it's a 45-minute event, you're not going to do that because it's an hour two ways. They always talk about you have to have at least double the one-way activity, double the amount of activity than a one-way trip. So when we look at the catchment area, if people are coming from, I'll say Brockville to Belleville, fine. An hour and a half is likely enough entertainment to justify that trip. But if they're coming from Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, or further, we need to have 6 hours, 8 hours, you know, something along those lines to attract. And so this is where the partnerships with the other attractions, and this includes the businesses that are in the downtown Bath, to you know, the restaurants, etc. That's part of that time. It's also part of the reason that we do economic development. You know, people have to have some place to leave their money, to be blunt. You know, these things are all good. It doesn't just have to be volunteers. There can be, you know, professional activities going on as well. And we need to figure out what the best mix, and we need to try something so that it doesn't sit idle. I encourage us to give some direction. Other members of council? Not seeing anyone else with hands up. Okay. The recommendation is to note and receive the report and to provide input and staff direction. I think we've provided a number of comments and specifically in support of the actions that have been taken so far and the directions. Right. I'll turn to both the director and to Ms. Fennell for comments about what further direction you're looking for.
What I can say is in the immediate, I guess one of the issues with developing the plan and doing all of that is we don't have the expertise here to do that. So we would have to be going out and getting assistance with that. We don't have in our arsenal of staff, none of us are real experts on heritage and promoting heritage and understanding the best options for doing that. So we would be needing some expert assistance in terms of developing that plan and looking at things. So one of the things would be, you know, the direction that you would like us to take with this. Do you want us to, you know, in the budget, we are developing our budget right now. So, you know, we can put in there for funding to have consultants help us develop these things, or to hire a consultant for doing that. We have left money in the budget for summer students to try and run programming similar to what we had planned to do last year, but couldn't because of COVID. So, you know, that is still there. Would council like us to keep that funding there? Would they like us to add some additional funding potential into the budget? that kind of direction is what I'm looking for anyways, and an understanding that to develop those is going to take some expertise.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, as is commonly, it becomes a budget question, right? We've got a certain amount of money put in to do what I'll call the status quo, the things that have been done before there. The students and the keeping the house open, similar to when the society ran it. Is there anything that council specifically wants to add, kind of in the short term, that would be an easy things like, the haunted walks, the tea times, some of those things? If there's something specific we want, then we need to know what the budget for that would be. I'm not looking for council to come up with the numbers. I'm looking for the direction so the staff can come up with the numbers to put that into the budget. And then secondarily, after consultation with the county, obviously, because they do have some expertise both at the tourism side of things and the heritage side of things. Now, does council wish to, I'll say, have that longer view to get consultants in to build programming with the support of the county and potentially external consultants? And should we be asking staff to include, well, at least to provide us with the option to include some money in the budget for that type of consultation? Councillor Porter.
I think the first step is to find out what the county can do for us. We already pay a portion of a position for economic development, which to me, the tourism is part of economic development, obviously. We already pay a portion of a salary. I can't remember what portion we pay, whether it's 50% or not.
45%, yeah.
45%. and that's been a topic of discussion for quite some time as to whether we need our own person. Whether you can hire somebody with that specific skill set that develops programs in tourism, I don't know. But certainly I think in consultation with the county, we should find out what level of expertise they do have, what they can offer us for what we're already paying them. Maybe it needs to be a refocus of energies of that position that they're already doing. And then secondly, we kind of need to know what's out there and what available resources or consultant companies are out there. I mean, I've never heard of a consultant for tourism. There probably is. I know that people do get educated in development of tourism. I think there's programs that college programs or something like that. So I don't know what's out there to be able to answer or give direction as far as, a budget number. Like, is this? But I think the first step is just to talk to the county and look at that position. I mean, that position is discussed in the next report. We've had discussions as council members last year at budget time about that position. And maybe that needs to be, the door needs to be opened again on that and that explored a little more as well.
Okay, thank you. Other members of council? Councillor Townend.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly be interested in seeing what potential collaboration we could have with Queen's University with respect to what we do with with the heritage museum aspect. I mean, to share with the suggestion about having a decolonized history of Upper Canada was a suggestion that I had emailed to Ms. Fennell. I think if we're redoing this thing more or less from scratch, which we kind of are, I think it's worthwhile considering the moment we're in our wider political conversation to consider a really thoughtful way in which we present the history of Upper Canada during the Loyalist settlement. And I think, in terms of finding partnerships and consultancies, to Ms. McFarland's point, that would be able to assist us in doing that. I mean, Queens is on our doorstep. So, potentially that would not work out, but for me, I would like to see that potentially looked into.
Thank you. Others? And Deputy, go ahead.
I agree with the previous two statements with, discussing with the county and Queens or whatever. I guess the other thing and it's mentioned in the next report is, I guess I was looking at it too, more than just the house or that property. And I guess if we can play different properties off with like to help each other draw a crowd. We got the Old Town Hall. It's pretty impressive just from the street view. The layer cake, the architecture is, incredible. We have the Fairfield-Gutzeit property. And then looking, and I guess going back to what Councillor Porter said too, about trying to find out what is out there to help us try to come up with a plan. I'd like to see us look at more than just what can we do with this right now, but what can we do with it in the future? Because if we tie these buildings all together, you've got a residence, you've got the architecture, you've got the governing bodies of the Old Town Hall, you've got the Nielsen store, and then looking even further, we got industry with the Babcock Mill. So, we're looking at one property here and we're trying to figure out what to do with it. And that's great. I guess what I'm looking at is if we're going to go with a line item in the budget and looking at getting some assistance, I'd like to see an overall plan as well, that in the next 10 years, what will we be managing? What will we have open to the public and how will we do it? And then we can, with that plan, each year we can take that next step and bring it all together. And that would be a way to work with all of, or hopefully help all of our local businesses as well, because if they stop there, if they go and they tour the house and then they go down to see the Old Town Hall, they're walking past the restaurants, the stores, grab an ice cream cone, whatever. And I know, again, just going back to me, that's where, if I was going to do a day doing something like that with my family, you park and you walk everywhere. And so that's when you do buy the ice cream, because you're hot. You support the local businesses, and then you can drive to another community like Odessa and tour the Babcock Mill. Or you have enough to make it a 2-day excursion, and now you're here for the weekend instead. So I guess that's what all that to say. This property, I agree, we need to look at what we can do with it and what the value is and what the assets are that we can utilize. But then I'd like to see the overall plan draw in sort of all of the assets we've got in the township and see what we can do to enhance bringing people to each one of them.
Forgive me, but are you kind of suggesting, similar to what we did with the recreation master plan, call it a heritage tourism master plan of some document of that nature?
Yeah, and yes, short answer, yes. To label it as a heritage tour, that's something we can look at. If we see that we want to be able to open it up to more, the title is whatever. But yes, an overall plan for how we want to see our tourism unfold in the area. Local and brought in.
Yeah. And Councillor Budrick, I think you were next.
Just to jump on Jim's comment there, try and emulate something similar to what the county's doing. And Hillary did mention that in her presentation. That would be a great point to start looking at things. That's all. But I think that they do such a good job that proximity with us and everything like that, something to kind of jump on with.
Thank you. Councillor Parks?
I was just wondering too, if there's a way maybe to piggyback either with the city of Kingston with some of their services or some of their heritage sites that they have, as well as with the Loyalist Parkway Association, because they're doing all along Loyalist Parkway up to Trenton and those areas. So there might be some opportunities to something with Quinte West and Quinte East and Prince Edward County too, to work that in. Could be something like they come into the village and then they go to a wine tour over into the county or something like that. I know we want to keep the money here, but if we don't have enough to keep them occupied here in Loyalist Township, then it would be something that we could maybe combine some services and use whatever they're doing as marketing also.
Absolutely. And I can comment that specifically Rob Plumley from the Economic Development of the county has a big focus on exactly that. He works with RTO9. He's worked with the Land O'Lakes organization when it was going. So we do have some, I'll say, some local expertise at the county level that we can tap into on that. And others? Staff, have we given you enough of a gist of a direction? And Laurie's nodding. Hillary's crying. No.
If she nods, I nod. That's how that works. So she's nodding, I nod.
And understood. Okay, then
I believe so.
again, I think this will likely involve a lot more conversation, a lot more planning, both in the short term and the immediate to the Fairfield-Gutzeit house and the properties around it, as well as Jim was pointing out, the longer, broader goals for tourism in the entire township and across the our potential partnerships with our neighbors as well. So at this point, I'll look for a motion. I'm likely to receive for information and have staff come back with further comments based on the directions we've provided. Councillor Porter, is that so moved? Thank you. Councillor Parks, second. Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Laurie, Hillary. And I doubt you want to stick around for the rest. It's up to you. See you later. Okay, moving forward. I do note that it is now 10 after 8. Right? Is there a desire or wish to have a biology break before we get into this? I know Steve's been sitting very patiently. I thought he was asleep at one point, but
the committee of the whole was called for this presentation, but Debbie put 2 presentations before ours. Fool me once, Debbie.
And okay, I think we'll go right into it then. We have a report here provided by the CAO and the manager of engineering, if I've got the title right. And I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Jenna and I are going to be doing this presentation tonight, and we're doing this because we want to take ownership of the report, the information, and the recommendations and the findings right from the beginning. So it looks like a long presentation. There are 39 slides, but we can run through them fairly quickly. We'd rather be in the same room, so there'd be some additional engagement between us, but and we're going to take questions as we go along, but I find with Zoom it's better to take questions at the end because it's really difficult to sort of stop and see everyone's hands. So if you just maybe would hold your questions to the end, be glad to answer them at that time. So if you could share the screen. Okay, thanks, Jenna. There we go. All right, next. So how did we get here? So we Loyalist received $506,761 from Ontario in 2018 for efficiency and effectiveness improvements. We have about $20,000 of that left. We do cover what we've done with that in slides to come. In 2019, Loyalist applied and was granted $100,000 to conduct a service delivery review, which we're talking about tonight. And then in 2020, it was rumored that the province will move from the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund to a funding program based on efficiencies. I think maybe COVID has delayed that process somewhat for the province, because we've received our 2021 allocation, and it will be in the amount of $466,000. And that's about 6,000 more than what we received this year. So, and if you remember, I did a presentation on the OMPF, and it's connected to the federal census data. And we're currently working with our MP to have Loyalists switched from the Kingston census to the Greater Napanee census. So that may make a considerable difference in the amount that we're eligible for. So Minister Steve Clark announced in March 2019, municipalities play a key role in delivering many provincial services that people across Ontario rely on. Taxpayers deserve modern, efficient service delivery that puts people at the center and respects hard-earned dollars. So what have we done with the money? In 2019, there was a corporate reorganization project. It's the first bullet, Jenna. There we are. Thank you. In 2019, we also purchased software, CityView, to assist inspectors and planning processes, and that is now in place. 2018, we started our asset management program. In 2020 and May going into 2021, we've just launched our new Loyalist website, paid for through the original efficiency money, and we're developing a new digital app. And that will have the whole website right in the palm of your hand. And I think Jenna will talk about this further on. We're looking for it to be robust and something we can use in the future for financial purposes. And in 2020, we conducted the service delivery review as well. So we've been doing a lot of work in this area, and we're becoming known as leaders, which is a good thing. And we're becoming known as a resource for other municipalities. So you might wonder why Jenna's with me tonight. Jenna agreed to be the on-site coordinator for the project, and I thank her for doing that, because not only was she coordinating it for us, she was also doing her regular responsibilities as well as her personal responsibilities she has at home. So I'm really thankful for Jenna's talents. And I think I may have mentioned it at another meeting, but Jenna graduated this year with her master's in public administration. So she was an excellent person to be working on this with us. So in January 2020, McLaren Municipal Consulting Incorporated were engaged to conduct the review, and many of you may have met Brian, Dan, and Ken. There were 3 in that team, and they have been working with us throughout the year. And in February 2020, we actually had a project kickoff meeting. So the overall objectives of the review was to investigate and understand current services and service delivery methods, to analyze and evaluate current services and delivery methods, and finally, to assess and recommend opportunities to be more efficient and effective in the sustainable delivery of municipal services. So the identification of services, first bullet, that are mandatory versus discretionary, that are redundant or irrelevant, where activities are duplicated or overlap, that are impacted by lack of capacity, that are being delivered at a higher than standard level. And I must say that through our roundtables, it was quite evident that council and staff are proud of the higher service levels that we're providing, such as the road clearing in the wintertime, which our residents expect, and we receive many comments that they certainly know where the Loyalist boundaries begin and end. And the last bullet point there is that don't fall under any of the above categories. So we looked at everything that we were doing. And most importantly of all, in identifying any barriers to make effective and responsive infrastructure and service delivery decisions. So a barrier might be resistance to change, so that's change management. Maybe an issue around control. There's been historical control in the delivery of that service. And another one would be maybe a lack of communication in delivering the service. So we're breaking down all of those barriers. So efficient and effective opportunities to improve sustainable delivery of services, obtaining comparable municipal data, benchmarking, and we'll speak to that as a challenge. Second bullet point, to improved allocation of service responsibilities and resources, addressing current capacity concerns. Identifying ways to reduce operating costs, the fourth. Identifying additional revenue sources, the fifth. Opportunities for partnerships, both existing and new. And lastly, discontinue services that no longer provide public value. We didn't find any of those because I think loyalists in council do a great job. We're still small enough that council's fully aware of what's going on, and if something isn't efficient or effective, that service was changed or deleted. Okay, next slide, please. So this slide is called challenges, or possibly reality. Would be a good description as well. So we conducted roundtables with departmental volunteers and council members, began in February. Then COVID-19 hit and the project was forced to move to digital meetings. So the timeline of the project moved from the end of June to the end of October, just because we had to turn our attentions to the COVID-19 protocols and management of the emergency, which continues. Lack of in-person meetings and engagement may have influenced generation and expansion of ideas. So it's very difficult through virtual meetings to get the engagement that we're used to. We have had lots of ideas from staff and council members through this process. But I think that if we were able to meet personally, it would have been a better experience in fleshing out some of our ideas. And lastly, the lack of comparable data exists to financial reporting and municipal servicing variances. So even though the province dictates the financial information returns, quite often it's apples and oranges, because there's a lot of leeway where you account for certain expense lines in our FIRs. So it's very difficult to compare Port Hope to Loyalists, Mississippi Mills to Loyalists, North Grenville to Loyalists. We all run our services differently. And as a result, we record them differently and report them to the province differently. So we have to be very careful when we're drilling down. So that's why our comparable data, we started out by saying, well, that should be easy to do, but when the reality of it, it's not easy to do, and we didn't want to mislead council in those areas. But we've included some data, or the consultants included the data that we thought was relevant. So the directors monitor and review the documents as the project progressed. It was a regular item. We meet weekly. The directors, senior management team meets weekly, and it was a regular item on our weekly agenda. And then September and October of this year, the final draft was reviewed by directors, managers, and supervisors. I think what we're reviewing tonight is actually draft 4. And the edits were done to ensure accurate descriptions of the services. And finally, the consultant delivered the final report on October 23rd last month. So now I'll ask Jenna if she would like to go through the summary of the report itself, and then I have a summary of the whole process at the end. I'll turn that over to you, Jenna.
Thank you, Steve. So I'm going to go through the summary of the findings from our third-party consultant. So the consultant that we hired was McLaren Consulting, and they prepared the report for us that identifies the effective and efficient enhancements or improvements that we can look at implementing. And they looked to see that they would align with population and business needs and with the township's strategic plan. So generally, there's a theme evolving within the organization that's a focus on long-term proactive and collaborative planning and policy making that's coupled with harnessing technology-based solutions and prioritizing customer service. So that's detailed in our strategic plan and other documents. And so these ideas are reinforced by the third-party report, and the implementation of these initiatives that are presented will lead to a more effective and efficient government. The priorities do not always lead to specific measurable cost savings, but do create strong value for residents and businesses and promote the fiscal health and sustainability of the township. So the criteria that we used for the development of the various themes were operating cost, where decreased costs lead to higher scores, and capital cost, where lower cost options were preferred. Service levels, where high scores were for improved levels of service, and barriers, where reduced barriers to implementation received higher scores. Risks, where lower risk projects were preferred, and the link to the strategic plan, where projects that contributed to strategic priorities received higher scores. So there were a number of benchmarking comparator municipalities that were used, as Steve has discussed previously. So this is a listing of the comparator municipalities that were used. And as Steve noted, we had some challenges finding comparator municipalities that had similar services, size, and would allow us to compare apples to apples. So the first set of improvement themes that I'll go through are up on the screen now. So the first is customer service. So the numbers that you'll see on the top right are sort of the score that were given to each of the criteria by the consultant. So for customer service, we looked to improve consistency by providing 2 full service customer service centers. So this would minimize the instances where issues would have to be referred to a specialist, and the locations were identified to be the Odessa office and the W.J. Henderson Recreation Center. And the consultant thought there could be some benefit to providing some evening hours for customer service representatives at the Henderson Recreation Center. The report also encourages the establishment of a community hub to centralize services and recommends that these 2 locations be open all day on Friday year-round. Other locations discussed were the Manitou office, where it was decided to maintain planning and building services, the Leisure and Activity Center, where limited services could be provided, and the potential increased services at the ferry office, as long as that didn't impact staffing levels. They also recommended that we establish customer KPIs, but that we should, track customer interactions and have a regular reporting framework to report on those key performance indicators. The second initiative is an IT strategy. So this was looking at targeted IT systems and relationships for the wide variety of software platforms, facilities, hardware and devices, capital projects, and vendors required for our corporate IT needs. It recommended looking at major projects and providing an implementation plan for a number of different software platforms, relationships, and IT initiatives, including those listed on the screen, and noted that the strategy should include an implementation plan based on prioritization and make recommendations on internal and external resource requirements.
In addition, it encouraged looking at shared services, the appropriate place in the organization for various IT related services, and the level of staff to implement, as well as training needs. For records and information management, they recommended the continued development of records management policy and records management program implementation to manage the creation, retention, retrieval, and disposition of corporate records to comply with the requirements of the Municipal Act, MFIPA, and other regulations, as well as continuing to pursue the replacement of records management software to ensure corporate consistency in records management and the promotion of open government and transparency. And it was suggested that this should coordinate with the IT strategy. In terms of corporate communication, the report recommended building on the updated township website. And in general, the recommendations in this area focus on strengthening services associated with the strategic priorities of engaging the public and promoting a community identity. So the intent is that the website will eventually provide self-serve capability for all applications and payments, thereby freeing up staff time to address other needs. In addition to increasing the service request function and potentially allowing online planning and building applications in the future. They also recommended a branding exercise to promote civic pride and developing a township app, as Steve alluded to promote communication, economic development, and branding, as well as centralizing marketing, branding, and sponsorship activities, and transferring staff positions involved, which has been shown to be extremely effective with the conversion of the communications and new initiatives coordinator that was done previously. So in terms of shared services, they recommend a number of opportunities to build upon the township's use of shared services within upper and lower tiers in the county of Lennox and Addington and the city of Kingston. The consultants note this is an opportunity for savings, but this was not quantified except to identify that it's largely as a result, that the savings are largely a result of economies of scale. So the possible savings associated with these initiatives would be determined when their options are reviewed in detail by staff at a later date. They did outline some limitations to shared services that may exist, including issues with response, concerns surrounding unique requirements in the various municipalities, and struggles for control over the process. So they suggested that discussions about shared services take place and a steering committee be created to develop an implementation plan for shared services. This is the next set of improvement themes that were developed. So starting with procurement, they suggested looking at our policy, which is in progress, and also reviewing procurements to ensure consistency with the policy so that the policy is being applied correctly when items are procured by staff. They also suggest building supplier interest when vendor response is weak as an activity that our procurement area could undertake, and building standing offers for goods and services that are required on a regular basis, as well as encouraging joint procurement or group buying with other municipalities. In terms of bylaw enforcement, so they want us to look at in-house versus contract options, and to review this not only from a cost perspective, but also the effectiveness of the service provided. So initial reviews demonstrate some savings and increased level of service may be possible bringing bylaw services in-house, but that there are some challenges, including HR needs, vacation coverage, unknown overtime, and on-call premiums and fleet costs. So it's recommended that the bylaw contract be extended until a detailed analysis can be developed and presented to council for consideration. In addition, they recommend that we support the new governance effort from the OPP, which will lead to a regional police services board, which may alleviate some of the concerns with respect to level of service for this contract. With respect to the planning process, the major recommendation is to continue participation in the county's modernization of development processes, including to participate in a facilitator service if that's established. They also recommend that the township address any concerns that are not resolved by the county-led process for the initiatives listed below, in addition to the planned development of the community design guidelines and standards. The consultant also noted that increasing planning fees to improve the cost recovery of this service is an opportunity for increased revenues, but the increase was not quantified. So this opportunity will be further reviewed by staff when the planning fees are reviewed. Economic growth. Generally, no changes were recommended to the resources dedicated to economic development. They did recommend that staff continue to make economic development opportunities a priority when they come forward, and that we maintain our collaborative partnership with the county to make use of services including marketing and promotion, retention and expansion, data and statistics, site selection assistance, and assistance to small businesses. But that we request quarterly reporting from the county with respect to economic development initiatives and the results of their actions. The next initiative is around the recreation center and community hub. The consultant recommended that we continue with efforts by the community hub steering committee with respect to the future development of this site, and that we start the design process for the pool project and larger hub project to be shovel ready in case of funding opportunities. They also suggest that we monitor revenues and costs and adjust as appropriate, and that we strengthen partnerships with the City of Kingston with respect to operating costs of the potential new facility, due to the large number of facility users being from outside the township. So this was also noted to be a potential revenue generating opportunity, and further discussions with the City of Kingston were recommended as the business plan for the updated facility is developed to allow these revenues to be quantified. This is the next set of themes. In terms of solid waste management, the recommendation was to continue the recycling contracts until the transition to the new Blue Box program, to conduct waste audits to determine the percentage of the waste stream being diverted, or to confirm, I suppose, the diversion, and to better identify actions that can be taken to promote waste diversion depending on what we see during the waste audits. And to also explore opportunities for organics diversion to extend the useful life of the landfills and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this work is currently being undertaken by Public Works in partnership with the Climate Action Plan. The next initiative is fleet. So the recommendation was to develop a fleet replacement reserve policy to allow for improvements to fleet reserve funds, to ensure effective and optimized replacement of fleet resources by developing a fleet operation policy, where we would review needs for fleet replacement outside of like-for-like replacement, and should include the type of vehicle and opportunities for pooled use of fleet assets as appropriate. And to develop a business case for new purchases by category, to look at multiple year-round use, leasing versus buying, especially once we have a review of the hours or kilometers of service for specific vehicles. Lori and Hillary stole my thunder for this slide, so I will breeze through it, but looking at the heritage museum properties and facilities in general, so the recommendation is to complete condition assessments so that we can understand our needs in order to properly plan project and maintenance activities moving forward to do the best work with limited resources, both money and staffing. This will allow the township to identify repair priorities in terms of life safety, structural preservation, and accessibility and public use, and also to identify staffing requirements. They also recommend cultural and heritage strategy and business plan for the township-owned heritage properties, and discuss the possibility of shared services or cooperation with the county for this initiative, and also to identify tourism industry opportunities, which were discussed at length previously. Oh, and sorry, to continue the, to have the nonprofit Heritage Community Trust Fund for donation and grant purposes. In terms of the ferry to Amherst Island, they recommended looking at the potential for converting the crew mess and day room for overnight accommodation due to the ferry finishing its last run on the island, and suggest establishing new fare collection and passenger reservation systems. So that's similar to the transponders that people have for the 407, looking at something like that. Again, this was identified as an area for cost savings or revenue generation, which can be further reviewed in detail in the future. In terms of transit, the consultant found that there was not a business case for extending service outside of Amherstview, but that there's clear interest. So we need to look at the value that can be created with respect to quality of life improvements and greenhouse gas reduction, and not just the cost. However, they did identify that the environmental benefits of this type of project are somewhat tied to ridership. They suggested that we look at the costs of conventional and specialized service and review service hours and routes, complete a willingness to pay review and look at ridership data further and do further analysis, and to implement the lowest cost approach to accessible service, and also review potential opportunities for privatization or other shared services in addition to those we currently utilize. And they thought we should consider developing a park and ride facility in Amherstview and explore opportunities for an on-demand service. The report noted that the consultant's recommendation is to avoid extending transit service to the rural areas because this could avoid substantial new expenditures. Transit is also being reviewed by Public Works in partnership with the Climate Action Plan, and there has been a lot of community engagement with respect to the survey that's been done, and a lot of information has been gathered from the public as to their specific desires, and that information will be coming to council in the form of a report at a later date as well. These are the last set of improvement themes. So in terms of winter maintenance, they recommended the redesign of plow routes to equalize arterials and collectors by route. So this has been done for the 2020-2021 season, and the new plow routes will be implemented whenever we get snow. They also recommend continuing the development of the multi-year operating budget and 10-year capital budget. So this is also planned to continue for the 2021 budget cycle. And the report recommends increased detail and transparency in the operating and capital budgets as well, in terms of specifics around projects and specific operating budget details. In terms of performance management, they suggest that there should be an annual report to council on the status of strategic plans objectives, and that this should be presented in the second quarter of each year to council. And they also suggest that the number of departments and services providing performance indicators during the budget should be increased, and this could be done on an as-needed basis or for compliance with legislation or areas where council desires further information. And lastly, the discussion around staffing. So we had hoped we would see a robust comparison of staffing levels compared to the benchmark municipalities. The analysis demonstrates that Loyalist is in the middle of the group in terms of the total staffing per 1,000 residents comparison that was done. The recommendation is to adopt a staffing policy where the increase of staff annually is tied to the community growth rate. So doing this results in a recommendation to limit to 5 new positions in the organization in each of 2020 and 2021. There were 6, sorry, that recommendation should not apply to volunteer firefighter recruitment. So there were 6 positions added in 2020. So the recommendation is for 4 positions to be added in 2021. So the consultants have suggested that the marketing position be converted from part-time to full-time, and that this be set as a corporate resource, and then that pre-budget approval be given for an engineering position, which was in the 2020 budget, to be hired early in 2021. And then in addition, they recommend looking at the other positions, and the guidance come from the reviews undertaken as a result of some of the initiatives discussed previously, or through the 2021 budget process, in order to determine which positions should be filled in 2021 and which positions should be filled later. So now we're back to Steve.
Thanks, Jenna. In summary, like, the journey is just beginning. The priority recommendations to be built upon and reported to council as we go. This is in the left-hand side, which probably will come up last. So what we're saying, the staff are committed to reviewing each recommendation contained in the report and reporting that back to council, fleshing them out, drilling down a bit, and providing the council with the necessary information that they need to make an educated decision on all of the recommendations. Partnerships is one of the biggest opportunities that I personally see. Communications and customer service opportunities as well. And even out of this so far, I've had a couple of informal discussions, one with the county CAO, who says there's only one taxpayer, and that's sort of her motto. And so hopefully we can develop something there. And then we've been invited to participate in a service delivery informal discussion roundtable with Mississippi Mills and North Grenville, which were 2 of the comparator municipalities. So the CAOs are going to meet on Monday, and we'll see how that goes. And then we may involve other staff. We may involve the mayors as well. I think it may be opportune if the political people as well, and these 2 municipalities, where all 3 of us are in different counties. We're not competing in any way. And I think we have information that we can share and help each other. The second opportunity is to allow staff to meet the objectives of the strategic plan. So you'll probably have noticed, and already, say, with the heritage portfolio, it's all interrelated, and it goes back to our presentation earlier in the year, where all of these plans are like a puzzle and they're all fitting together now, which is fantastic. It's really exciting to see the strategic plan, the asset management plan, the official plan, the secondary plan, which we're going to hear about soon, and all coming together with the council's leadership. We have the vision, we have our mission, and we have our objectives, and hopefully we'll be able to meet those objectives for council. They'll actually, one of the things that Jenna talked about was a report on the strategic plan dashboard, and that will be coming to the second meeting in November. We're working on that right at the moment. Thirdly, to seek further funding opportunities from the province. So this report now gives us access to the 3rd round of efficiency funding. So if there are any recommendations here that we require funding to implement, we can apply for further provincial funding as those opportunities arise. And the service levels are further reviewed by council during the asset management project. We've talked a lot about service levels, so you're going to see those again through our asset management project. Sarah has been working on that with Steve, and they'll be doing a presentation in the new year on that. So Loyalist continues to be a leader in asset management, concierge services through our planning department, and now customer service through the reorg. And we've talked about service. If you read the report, it talks about customer service CSRs. And so having those people responsible when the public calls in or contacts us with a concern, with a question, sort of one-stop shopping, doesn't matter where they're located, but people will be familiar with the county or with the township's operations. So the last slide, Jenna. So we just want to say thank you to McLaren Consulting, township staff and council members who participated in the project. And especially I'd like to thank Jenna. And by working together, we will build a financial sustainable future while meeting service expectations. And it should have said at an affordable level, hopefully. So, okay. So with that, Mr. Chair, that is the presentation. So we'd love to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silver. Excellent presentation, and certainly commend yourself and Jenna and all of the staff that were involved in this. It's a hell of a pile of work that you guys did, and that's greatly appreciated. Next up, we have some questions. Council, it was a long presentation. It's a 73-page, 75-page report, something like that. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? Councilor Porter.
76 pages, not to correct you, but there's a lot of good information here, a lot of information, and I read through it twice. It is a large document, to only have a few days to digest and review. There is a couple of areas that I do have some reservations on. I guess I'm quite happy with all the recommendations in the report, except for there was two I think that I really need more information on, and one is the having full services or a service facility run out of the recreation center. I do have reservations about that. It's always a challenge when you try and operate two different service centers to be able to provide all the information that anybody would need. I know that it wasn't ideal splitting our building and planning department, but be it as it is, we need to get that message out that is just planning and building. And I'm wondering if we're going to put out a mixed message if at the rec center we are going to be providing other services. So that's something I just think needs more review, more detail on what kind of services, who are we servicing out of the rec center. You don't, in my opinion, we don't want to get into a situation where we create expectations, where somebody thinks because they can go pay a tax bill at the rec center, they should be able to get all the information they need at the rec center. And that's that would be quite challenging. Our Odessa office is the main, municipal offices, and we have branches, and we've always had that. So to me, I have a bit of reservation there. The other thing that and we talked about this earlier in the last report, some of the recommendations under this, the economic development and the county position that kind of came up. I think we need to look at that a little bit more, as well as I was quite surprised by the comment that about snowplow routes. We had just heard how fantastic we were doing, and now we want to change what we're doing. So the old mantra, if we're doing really well, why are we fixing it, sort of thing. So that kind of came to mind when you had mentioned that. But as said earlier, this is a huge document. I would like to see, I know your recommendation is that we receive it and that it be further reviewed by staff. I agree with that. I'm not so sure I agree with the word implemented. I don't think we're ready to implement. I think it should be reviewed by staff, and I'd like to see staff, the directors, come back with reports from each of their departments on the recommendations and whether they agree with the recommendations or whether they have any other recommendations to add. So I'd like to see that kind of report come back to a committee of the whole and have another review of this report. As I said, it's 76 pages. It was a long report. I think we need time to digest it, and I think it would be prudent of us for it to come back again to a committee of adjustment with all the directors' input, maybe broken down into the various departments as it is, but with whether directors agree with the recommendations. This is a consultant that doesn't know our municipality as well as our directors or as council members. And there may be some things in there that may just not work. So I'd like to hear that side of the coin as well.
Thank you. Well said. Steve, go ahead, Steve.
To you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's exactly what we're suggesting happen now. So the council's receiving the report, and that the word implemented will be there just through the detailed staff reports. So we're not implementing the whole report. The recommendations, as you suggested, will be going through each director, and there's information that we feel that should be provided so that you can make an education decision on each of those recommendations. So we'll be taking them one by one, and they will go back, and those reports will be coming from the relevant director at the time, or myself if it's something corporate and holistic. And the other thing, the full service rec center, you can now do everything at the rec center. You can drop off your tax payments or your utility bill payments, but you can't get a receipt. So one thing that this would do, would you be able to get a receipt rather than just dropping something off in an envelope right then and there? You'd be able to get your receipt. So I think that'd be providing some better service. You can get dog tags, blue boxes. You can get, it's pretty much a full service now. What you can't do at the Odessa office is register for programs. So it can come the other way as well. So if you live in Odessa and you want to register for a recreation program, you should be able to do that at the Odessa office in person if you wish to do that. So we want to integrate the services a little bit better. And we'll take a look at the locations as well. We're not certain that the rec center may not be the right location for that. You can also go to the leisure center right now, and they're providing the same service that the rec center really is, because we have residents that are there doing yoga or some other activity, and they're saying, well, why do I have to go down the street to the rec center to do that? Why can't I just do that here? So it is about customer service, and we want to just take a look at the numbers to make sure that it's efficient to do these changes. And what that means in dollars for staffing is always the biggest cost. So we'll be coming back with a report on location and staffing and just a procedure to do that. And I know that when we were talking about our CUPE negotiations last year, having the office open on Friday afternoons was a priority for council. And so we're working through that. This report recommends that. We have a working group right now of management and union looking at ways that we would do that. So hopefully we'll be reporting good news on that as well in the future.
Thank you. Councilor Porter, any follow-up?
No, just the reassurance was there, and I appreciate the answer. And yeah, as long as it's not going to be implemented before we have another review, that was my main concern.
Thank you. Other members of council? Big report. and a late night.
And a late night.
And we have the recommendation from Steve to receive, and the recommendations be further reviewed by staff for implementation through detailed staff reports. As you said, we just heard a description of how that will happen, and that we will have opportunity to address the individual recommendations as they're coming forward. Okay. Council, do we want to talk more about this? Getting the impression people are tired and hungry. Councillor Buderick, did you have comment?
I was just gonna make a motion, actually, just to accept upon Steve's recommendations, and that we're going to have those staff reports come back. I had previously read it. I'd gotten a copy of it a week ago. I think it's a fantastic document. There's a lot to it, and it'll just take a little time to chew on, that's all. But I like the direction that Steve was heading with this.
Thank you. I'll take that as a motion. And your comments. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gordon. Right. Ron, did you have anything to add to it? No? Anybody else? I'll go to the Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Porter.
Yeah, it's a great report, and I think it's a great overview. I'm looking forward to the reports where it drills down a little more. Although it was a lot of reading for us, kudos to everyone involved for being able to bring it to us and as concise as it is. To be honest with you, this was a good sized document to read and digest, but I was very happy to see that it wasn't just how small it was. There's a lot of information in it, so kudos to everyone involved. It hit the points, it stayed concise, and I think we're on the right track. And I think the next reports are going to be really a great way to do a full review to be able to move ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Porter?
I just wanted to offer a friendly amendment. Can I do that?
And
Yes.
we'll find out if it's friendly after you tell me what it is.
I'd just like to take the word implemented out, because it leads us to believe in reading this later down the road. It might read like, oh, we were told to implement it through a staff report. I just really uncomfortable with that word in there.
Would you accept the change of word from implement to followed up with?
Yes, that'd be much better.
So that's your request for friendly. I see that Councillor Buderick is accepting that. Councillor Gordon, do you also accept that? Okay, so the motion is changed to that the COW recommend to council the report be received and recommendations be further reviewed by staff and followed up with through detailed staff reports.
Thank you.
The clerk has that. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we move to item 5.1. I know nobody wants it. Oh, sorry. And the CAO has comment.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, or Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask council if they have any ideas for delegations during the Roma conference to email them to me by the end of the week. We'd like to make those requests by Friday so that our requests are in early. We've had good luck at getting them in early and having them granted. So if you have any requests for delegations with the minister to talk about a certain topic, that's all I need for now, and then we can flesh it out later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Council will take that note and send in your ideas. Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Nobody? I'll go with Councillor Townend and Councillor Buderick. All right. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you all. I know it's been a very long night, but we got through a lot of very important stuff tonight. So I think we did well. I appreciate staff sticking it out, especially those that are just sticking around watching. Must have been rather boring. So again, thank you all and have a great evening. We will see you next Monday.